The whole world is looking for the next Iron Man. I don't know if I can live up to that.
I don't think Tony would have done what he did if he didn't know that you were going to be here after he was gone.
We have a job to do. You're coming with us?
Can you give that to MJ in case something happens to me?
Nothing's gonna happen to you. You got this.
Stark made you an Avenger. The world needs that.
What is good, YouTube? Warstu here with another video on Spider-Man Far From Home. So the fact this movie is going to introduce the Marvel Cinematic Universe Multiverse properly. Now I know what you're going to say, the multiverse was first introduced during the Doctor Strange movie. It was, but it wasn't really explored to the point where we're going to see the MCU change in this movie. So if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe to never miss any of the videos. We do videos like this all week long, and we're also giving away a Hasbro Infinity Gauntlet, the Marvel Legend one, at the end of this month, being May, which is coming up very soon. All you gotta do is subscribe to the channel and let me know down below literally anything you think about this video or Marvel in theory. So let's get into this video. So the title is quite surprising. I was really surprised when I found this out. So could Tobey Maguire be returning to Spider-Man? Yeah, sure he could. He was also asked a question about this recently. So, the multiverse is the multiverse. It could introduce literally anything and everything. The Fantastic Four, Galactus, Doctor Doom, alternate versions of Spider-Man like we've seen in Into the Spider-Verse, which is also owned by the same company that makes this movie. Yes, Into the Spider-Verse is part of the Sonyverse, it's not part of the MCU, but it literally could introduce the Spideyverse during this movie. So recently Tobey Maguire was asked a question and his answer was pretty interesting. He said this: I just don't really have a I would or I wouldn't mindset. I'll just do whatever it is that comes out that I feel that may or may not fit any kind of box. So Tobey Maguire definitely isn't closing the door on the idea that he could one day return to the realm of superhero movies. His years as Spider-Man and multiple films haven't caused him to swerve away from working in this genre. But he isn't itching to get back in them tight pants, I guess you could say. Therefore, what he told The Hollywood Reporter isn't a definite answer about whether he would return to superhero movies in the future, but the door is definitely left open. So, ever since it was revealed that the multiverse was opened due to the snap opening a breach, tearing a hole in the multiverse. Now, the explanation we've got for that is pretty ridiculous, but it is interesting that they're using the end of Avengers EndGame to open up the pathway to more characters through the multiverse, which will be very interesting. Mysterio, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, is making out he's from a different Earth, which is very interesting because he says on his Earth there's no one like Spider-Man. But Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man could literally return during Spider-Man Far From Home, but Warstu, he hasn't been seen filming anywhere. He hasn't. Literally, it would take him to go into the studio for literally 1 hour to film a short cameo role if he wanted to return. So I think this movie is going to change the Marvel Cinematic Universe as we know it, just like Kevin Feige said. But at the same time, don't be expecting to see the X-Men or the Fantastic Four. Kevin Feige has said the next phase is going to last 5 years. So the fact they could introduce different Spider-Men into this universe is apparent. But why is it apparent? Because Sony owns this movie, right? They own all the Spider-Man characters in the movie sense. So, although the Marvel Cinematic Universe deal with making it, Sony funds it, Sony licenses it, and Sony releases it and distributes it, Sony do have an input. Amy Pascal did have input into this movie before she left to join Universal, which would be good for the Hulk getting more screen time, I guess you could say, in Marvel movies. But apparently she's still working very close with Marvel. So does Warstu really think that Tobey Maguire could appear in Far From Home? In theory, yes, he definitely could. And the fact he was recently asked Is he for it, against it? He didn't really say yes or no. He just says, I'm not really going to answer that. In other words, he says, I'm neither for or against. But is he really going to appear? I honestly think nothing is out of bounds. We do know they are building up the Sinister Six. And with the speculation, the rumors that Gwen Stacy is going to be played by the actress from Sabrina, the Netflix show, why not? Why wouldn't there be another Spider-Man if they're going to introduce Gwen Stacy, Harry Osborn, the Sinister Six? Surely Spider-Man would need help from somewhere. Obviously, Gwen Stacy would make more sense. But if they are going to be following a similar storyline to Into the Spideyverse, then it would make a lot of sense for Peter Parker to get help from another Peter Parker that in theory would be from another world, would be an older Peter Parker, would go down pretty well. Now, Tobey Maguire is really popular. I still think he is one of the better Spider-Mans. I don't really think there's been a bad Spider-Man. As good as Tom Holland is, we've only really seen him in one movie. I discredit EndGame because he was hardly in that. I discredit Civil War, he was hardly in that. I discredit Infinity War, he was hardly in that, which is interesting. And also, there has been news that Deadpool may appear in Spider-Man 3. Now, if you're going to say Deadpool can appear in Spider-Man 3, then Tobey Maguire appearing in Spider-Man 2, aka Spider-Man Far From Home, it's not really that far-fetched. And it would work perfectly to get Tom Holland and Tobey Maguire in the same movie. Fans have called this for years. A lot of Spider-Man fans of Tobey Maguire have wanted him back for such a long time. And could he appear? Yeah, he could. It would be really hard to make it work in the sense of contractually to get him in the movie. I think that would be pretty hard. But in order for multiverse travel to work, it would be pretty interesting, wouldn't it? And what would be fitting would be, what happens if he's already filmed his thing, his scene? What happens if Tobey Maguire is actually a cameo role and he actually is the person giving Spider-Man and Peter Parker his passport in the scene they've cleverly edited out? Now, I've said multiple times that I think this is Stan Lee's last cameo, but we've had Kevin Feige, we've had the Russo brothers. Kevin Feige's got a lot more credentials than the Russo bros, because although the Russo bros did work very closely with the director for Spider-Man Far From Home, I don't really believe what the Russo bros say, so I don't think that he is going to have a cameo role in this movie. And potentially, what would happen if Tobey Maguire had a cameo role in the passport office and he was actually the character that is giving Spider-Man his passport in order for him to go to Europe? Because it makes no sense for them to edit out who is giving him the passport. You see the hand, you don't see the face. Why don't you see the face? Very interesting. Now, I know there's been a lot of controversy about when Spider-Man Far From Home is set, but now we've seen EndGame. It is in 2023, which makes a lot of sense. So it's going to be very interesting to see if Tobey Maguire could appear in this movie in a cameo role, in actual from the multiverse. I mean, it's not that ridiculous. A lot of people were thinking that Wolverine was going to appear in EndGame, that Galactus, that the Living Tribunal, but the fact that Tobey Maguire could actually appear in Spider-Man Far From Home is ridiculous. No, it's not. But it is interesting that the team that worked on the special effects for EndGame apparently want Galactus to appear in a future Marvel movie. There's a lot of stories going around about who will be the next big bad, who's going to appear, but I perfectly think this movie sets up more than just Tobey Maguire. It sets up Miles Morales in a cameo role sense. Why is that? Well, because it's the Into Spideyverse. It is the Spideyverse crossover theory that I'm not going to take credit for because that's been going around everywhere. But to be honest, everyone that's watched Into Spideyverse has thought, well, now they've introduced the multiverse, they could literally tease parts of Into Spideyverse into this movie. Now, how cool would it be if Miles Morales was actually going to be in this movie? The director of this movie has straightly said, no, he's not in the movie. But even if he was in the movie, why would the director for the movie ruin Miles Morales appearing? So I think it would make a lot of sense if Miles Morales does appear in this movie, because there can be multiple Spider-Mans. Obviously, we know the multiverse. We know there's going to be different versions of same characters. Yes, they literally could have a different version of Iron Man from another Earth. Would they do that? no, it'd make no sense to kill him off in such a savage way. It's such a heroic way to bring him back on a different Earth. I know there's a lot of Iron Man fans stretching, really hoping that they bring him back from a different Earth, but realistically, that makes no sense. So guys, let me know, is this rumor that Tobey Maguire is going to appear in Into Spider-Verse, Spider-Man Far From Home, which is literally could be the same movie, is there any validity to that? And also, it is interesting that a lot of people are saying Spider-Man Far From Home is literally a rip-off of the PS4 Spider-Man game, which ironically is built around building up the Sinister Six with Norman Osborn, with Vulture, with Scorpion, with literally the whole Sinister Six in there. So I can understand why a lot of people are saying that Spider-Man Far From Home is literally a rip-off of the PS4 game. But guys, let me know down below. Let's have a conversation. Do you think Tobey Maguire is going to appear in this movie in a cameo role or coming through the multiverse? It would be very interesting if they did do that. It would shock a lot of people. Personally, I could see it happening, but it would be pretty cool if that could happen. And also, if we could get Miles Morales come through the multiverse, that would be pretty awesome if that was actually going to happen. Whilst editing this, I found a pretty interesting story to add on to the end of this. So, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, a verified Twitter account, tweeted this out. It's a cryptic tweet. It's interesting. It says, "See you in another dimension." And it's literally Spider-Man, and it looks like Miles Morales. So are they teasing that Miles Morales is actually going to appear in this movie? Because what it's teasing is Spider-Man looking into an interdimension, basically the multiverse. This was tweeted on the 8th of May. But a lot of people online are thinking this is a direct correlation. And it's confirming that Miles Morales is going to appear in Spider-Man Far From Home. Now, this would be freaking awesome if this did happen. Then again, Miles Morales appears in Spider-Man PS4. Again, are they copying Spider-Man PS4 for this whole movie? It is interesting. So like always, guys, please like, subscribe, and comment. I will catch you in another video very soon. Catch ya later.